I think there are times around here that we lose sight about what real people are doing in our home states. I think we lose sight of the struggles, their daily struggles, how they live their life with integrity and honor every day and go to work. And yesterday, we got a call in my office from a young lady, and she was on her cell phone. She's a nurse's aide at the VA hospital in St. Louis. She was on her break, and she was on her cell phone, and she talked to the young lady who answers our phone and said, I want you to tell the senator that I've got kids, and I bring home the paycheck, and the way I feed my kids is with my paycheck I get working here at the VA hospital, and I'm scared. I'm scared about what's going to happen if all of a sudden I quit getting my paycheck. I've got really no place to turn. I'm a single mom, and I am very worried. And then she said, would you hold on a minute? And then she handed her cell phone to someone else in the break room at John Cochran VA Hospital. And then that woman handed the cell phone to another woman. And by the time this conversation was over, the young lady that answers the phone in my office had talked to a half a dozen women who don't make a lot of money, who go to work every day caring for our veterans in a veterans hospital. And you know what they all said? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? And if LaTanya and her friends were here right now, I would say, you know, that's a darn good question, why this is happening. This is not a game. This is not a game of ping pong where we're hitting the ball up and down this hall from the House to the Senate, fighting over divisive social issues that, frankly, our country has struggled with for decades and will continue to struggle with. This is about running our government and about the money it takes to run our government, and that's all it should be about. It shouldn't be a time for us to argue about Gitmo, or it shouldn't be a time for us to argue about women's reproductive health. It should be about funding our government. We have many other occasions we can debate those issues and disagree, and reasonable people do disagree. But now is not the time to debate those issues at the 11th hour when LaTanya is not going to get a paycheck to feed her kids. I'm for cuts. I have been the odd man out many times in my caucus fighting for cuts. I worked on spending cuts last year with Senator Session from Alabama. I continue to work with Senator Corker about cuts. I'm somebody who said the original proposals that my caucus made were way too little. But you know what I'm beginning to feel like? I'm beginning to feel like I've been duped, Mr. President, because I thought that's what this was about. I thought it was about cuts. Now let's review the facts here. The chairman of the House Republican Budget Committee and the Speaker of the Republican House said we need to cut $32 billion out of the remaining budget this year. I got to tell you the truth, I didn't think that was unreasonable. Now, I will admit I'm to the right of much of my caucus on some of this cutting stuff, but I didn't think that was unreasonable. So I was glad when we went to the Republicans and said, you know what, we'll cut. We'll cut what you wanted to cut. In fact, we'll cut more than what the House Speaker and the chairman of the House Budget Committee wanted to cut. And that's where we are today. We have put more cuts on the table than they initially recommended. I'm beginning to realize this isn't about cuts. This is about a much more extreme agenda that has to do with social policy, not about money. They keep moving the goalpost. What is the number? They keep moving the goalpost. We have gone more than halfway, and in my neck of the woods, that's called a compromise. We have the Republicans controlling the House, the Democrats control the Senate. That's why compromise is so important. What is wrong with a compromise? Let's do the compromise, fund the government, and get on with it so LaTanya can get her paycheck and the other women that work with her at the VA hospital can get their paycheck. They will not take yes for an answer on cuts at this point. They want to make it about something else. Was the CR today just about military pay? No, it was not. I did notice one thing they didn't put in the CR today. Why won't the House Republicans pass the bill that we've asked them to pass that cut our pay if the government shuts down? I will certainly not take a paycheck, and no one should take a paycheck. Why is that not being passed by the Republican House of Representatives? Why wasn't that put on the CR today? They want to, once again, pass something about moving people out of Gitmo, which has nothing to do with the budget through the rest of the year. When they were doing the Gitmo thing, why didn't they put the pay for members in there? Why didn't that occur? And I know the talking point is that this is one of the talking points we're hearing from the other side. Well, you know, you should have gotten this done last year. Well, we could get it done today. We could get it done today. We've gone more than halfway on a compromise, and this is no longer about the cuts. This isn't about the money. This is about an extreme agenda. And LaTanya's paycheck hangs in the balance, and her friends in the break room at the VA hospital. Let's review what happened last year on the budget. The Republican Party participated in every appropriations committee in the Senate, and every appropriations committee passed a bill. And at the end of the year, that bill was brought to the floor because the appropriators believed that the Republican appropriators were supporting the bills they helped write. In fact, those Republican appropriators stuffed that bill full of earmarks for Republicans. Hundreds of earmarks for Republicans were stuffed in that bill, and it was brought to the floor, and I remember the night it was brought to the floor. It was in the lame duck. And then the Republicans decided they didn't want to support it anymore. And by the way, it wasn't as if passing anything around here was easy last year. If anybody was paying attention, it was about let's drag this out, let's be stubborn, let's make sure they got to get to 60 on everything. And is there blame to go around that the budget didn't get done last year? Sure. It can go on both sides of this aisle. And I am not here to say that it was the Republicans' fault or the Democrats' fault, but there's certainly, it is really takes a lot of nerve to say the only reason we don't have a budget is because the Democrats were not willing to pass a budget last year. It was a little more complicated than that if people remember the facts as they occurred at the time. So it appears to me now that there are certainly a lot of people down the hall that want the shutdown. I was really interested when I saw in the paper that when Speaker Boehner announced to his caucus they were preparing for a shutdown, he got a standing ovation. Well, I can assure you, there are no standing ovations in our caucus. There are no standing ovations. And I'll tell you what, when I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to be thinking about LaTanya. I'm going to be thinking about her kids and what she's telling them tonight and what not getting one paycheck means to that family. Just one paycheck can make the difference, can send a family down a path of getting behind on their mortgage, getting behind on their bills, and then not having a way to catch up. And that's what we should be thinking about right now. Not about those social issues that we disagree on and that we can debate and disagree on for many years, as we have for the last 40 in this country, but really, can we get a number? Can we make the goalpost quit moving? Can we agree on the cuts and then get on to the hard work? I mean, how embarrassing is it that we are fighting over literally a few $1 billion in differences? And if this is so much about cutting the debt, for another day, I want to talk about this. But really, the Republican budget was released this week, and guess what it adds to the deficit over the next decade? The Ryan Roadmap, $8.2 trillion it adds to the deficit over the next decade. That's how serious they're getting about the deficit. Cuts taxes for a lot of wealthy people, doesn't do much on the deficit. So I'm all for cuts. I've stood for cuts. I will continue to stand for cuts. This federal government has to shrink. But what's going on right now is a political game, and it's shameful, and it should stop. And we should make an agreement on the numbers, move on, and make sure LaTanya gets paid. Thank you, Mr. President. I yield the floor.